All right, so get this. Today we're going deep dive into effective lead follow-up strategies,
Okay.
but from a source that you might not expect.
Right.
We are going to be looking at a training guide for chiropractors.
Chiropractors. What can chiropractors teach us about like cutting-edge sales tactics?
That's what I thought too, but think about it.
Okay.
They're in this really crowded healthcare market. They're constantly battling misconceptions, and they really have to fight for attention.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
They must be doing something right if they're managing to stay afloat.
yeah. And I mean, let's be honest, these days, everybody's just tuning things out.
It's true.
Inbox is overflowing, notifications buzzing constantly. It takes a lot to cut through all that noise.
Absolutely. And that's actually a challenge that this training guide addresses right off the bat.
Oh.
It starts with this hilarious story about how even drug dealers are having to be super persistent these days to get anyone's attention
Wow.
because they're facing the same information overload.
Oh my gosh, that's both funny and terrifying at the same time.
It is.
Okay, so we know we need to rethink how we follow up if we want to get noticed.
Right.
So what's the first step then to grabbing someone's attention in this crazy world?
Well, this guide introduces this concept called the Scooby-Doo of your first outreach.
Okay, Scooby-Doo. I'm intrigued.
Basically, it's about making your initial message like really short,
Okay.
intriguing, not overwhelming people with a ton of information.
Oh, I love that. I am a total sucker for a good cliffhanger.
Right.
Like, I'm thinking about all those emails I get for those online courses.
Yeah.
The ones that are like short and punchy and make you actually want to click and learn more.
Yeah, you want to find out what's behind the mystery, right?
Exactly.
And that's kind of the idea here. By sparking curiosity and making it easy for someone to take action right away.
Yeah.
You're not scaring them off with a wall of text.
No, you leave them wanting more.
Exactly.
So it's less about giving them every single answer up front.
Yeah.
It's more about getting them interested enough that they want to keep going. I'm already thinking about how this applies to way more than just sales.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Think about networking events.
Okay.
Instead of doing that typical elevator pitch,
Right.
what if you left them with a question or a teaser about what you do?
Ooh, I like that.
That's memorable, and then they're more likely to want to follow up with you.
That's a good example. Okay, so we've hooked them with our little Scooby-Doo approach.
Right.
Now the question is, how often do we follow up?
Yeah.
And that's where this guide throws us a bit of a curveball because it's got some conflicting advice in there.
Well, yeah, it does.
Right.
On one hand, they say you should do 10 follow-ups in 10 days,
Okay.
which seems pretty intense.
Yeah.
But then they also suggest contacting someone 5 times in one day.
Whoa, hold on. That's a huge difference.
It is.
5 times in one day feels like that could get annoying really fast.
Yeah, it could.
Is there anything to that approach? Like, is it actually good?
I mean, it's definitely a bold strategy, and it wouldn't work for every single situation.
Yeah.
But I think before we write it off completely, we should look at like the psychology of how often you're following up with somebody.
Okay, so what are the pros and cons we need to weigh?
Well, 10 follow-ups over 10 days does allow you to gradually build that relationship, demonstrate that you're committed, but not overwhelming them.
Mm-hmm.
The risk there is that your message kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
Especially if you're dealing with busy people.
Right, exactly.
And I imagine with 5 contacts in one day, you're definitely not getting lost.
No.
But how do you avoid seeming like, a stalker?
Well, the key is to make sure that each of those touch points is actually giving them something valuable.
Okay.
And it's specific to them.
So it's not just poking them over and over again.
Right.
It's actually giving them something.
Exactly. You're offering something new and relevant each time.
So maybe it's like a quick tip about their industry, a link to an article, a reminder about something you offer that could help them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about being strategically helpful, not just mindlessly annoying.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so it's a fine line.
It is.
So is there a sweet spot?
Well, the guide actually cites this study that found that engagement drops off a lot after just 4 touch points.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like 46% drop in engagement.
Wow.
So it really shows how important those first few interactions are.
Yeah. Okay, so we've laid the groundwork with our Scooby-Doo opener. We're being careful about how often we follow up. What's next?
Well, this is where they introduce this really interesting tactic called the final bump strategy.
Final bump. Okay.
And it involves using a tool that you might not expect, the calendar invite.
Interesting. Okay, so calendar invites are for scheduling meetings,
Right.
not usually some secret weapon of persuasion.
Right. So the guide uses this example of a chiropractor who is struggling to get a former NFL player to schedule a follow-up call.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I imagine that would be hard.
Right. Super busy guy.
Yeah.
Inbox probably overflowing.
Totally.
So the chiropractor did something kind of unconventional.
What did he do? He sent the player a calendar invite with a specific time already blocked off for a call.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't asking, it was just saying, hey, I've set this time aside for us.
No.
Let me know if it doesn't work.
Okay, so it's assertive,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not aggressive.
No.
And I can see how it would really stand out in a crowded inbox.
Yeah, because it forces a response.
Right.
And it applies what they call loving pressure.
Loving pressure.
And it helps to filter out like the quality leads.
Okay, so break it down for me. What is loving pressure?
So it's like that friend who sends you a calendar invite for that coffee you've been meaning to get together for.
Oh, yeah.
You're more likely to follow through because it's actually scheduled.
Yeah, it's not just this vague idea anymore.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and you don't want to let your friend down.
Right.
So you actually make it happen.
Exactly. And that's the kind of accountability this strategy creates.
Yeah.
And by forcing that response,
Yeah.
you're making sure that the message doesn't just get ignored.
Right. So you're basically taking a passive, let me know if you're interested, and turning it into an active decision point.
Exactly.
No more radio silence or vague promises.
Exactly.
Okay, I like this. And this strategy, it works for more than just sales, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, think about getting your friends to commit to dinner plans or even just nudging yourself to finally do a task you've been putting off.
So it's like a productivity hack
It is.
disguised as a sales tactic.
It is.
And what about filtering those quality leads? How does that work?
Well, the people who are really interested will respond to the calendar invite, even if it's just a reschedule.
Right.
But the ones who don't,
Yeah.
maybe they weren't that invested to begin with.
It's a way to see who's serious and who's not.
Right.
Okay, so we've got these intriguing openers, being strategic about how often we follow up, and now this final bump strategy.
Yeah.
What other good stuff does this guide have for us?
You know, one thing that this guide really emphasizes is this idea of like one more contact. Oh, yeah. You know, it's easy to just get discouraged when it feels like nobody's noticing your efforts.
For sure.
But sometimes all it takes is just that one extra push.
You know, that reminds me of this quote I heard.
Oh, yeah.
Most people give up just when they're about to achieve success. They quit on the 1-yard line.
It's so true.
It's easy to just give up when you don't see those instant results.
Right.
But this whole one more contact idea,
Yeah.
it's like persistence really can pay off.
It definitely can. And, you know, it also ties back to that relationship building aspect.
Right.
The guide makes it really clear.
Yeah.
Effective follow-up isn't about badgering people until they say yes.
No.
It's about cultivating trust
Okay.
and understanding their needs.
So it's not just about being relentless. It's about being helpful, providing value every step of the way.
Exact. And, you know, think about it.
Okay.
The follow-up emails that you actually enjoy getting,
Right.
they're probably not just generic sales pitches. They're offering you something useful.
Yeah, helpful advice, or maybe some interesting content, or even just like checking in with you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's those little personal touches that make
Right.
you feel like the person on the other end actually cares.
Exactly. It makes you feel like they're not just trying to make a sale.
Right.
And that's where timing comes in.
Okay.
Because the guide points out that everybody is just bombarded with messages these days.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to be really mindful of when and how you're reaching out.
I'm realizing that effective follow-up isn't really about some rigid set of rules.
No, it's not a formula.
It's more about adapting to the person you're connecting with.
Yeah.
Like there's some real emotional intelligence involved.
There is. And, you know, it goes back to understanding the psychology of the people you're talking to.
Yeah.
The fact that we're all just drowning in information means that we have to approach follow-up with a lot more empathy.
This is so interesting.
Yeah, it's fast.
We started out looking at this chiropractor sales guide, and now we're uncovering these really deep insights about persuasion.
And connection.
It's amazing what you can learn when you start looking for wisdom in unexpected places.
It really is. And I think what this deep dive shows is that effective follow-up, no matter what field you're in, whether it's sales or networking or even just keeping up with friends,
Yeah,
it's really about making that human connection.
I couldn't agree more. So what does all of this mean for you, dear listener?
Yeah. How can you take these principles and actually apply them to your own life and work?
Let's brainstorm a little.
Okay, yeah. So if you're in sales or marketing, think about how you can use that Scooby-Doo approach in your initial outreach.
Yeah,
How can you create that sense of mystery
right.
without overwhelming people?
And for those of you who hate networking events,
Oh, yeah.
what if you ditched the elevator pitch
Yeah.
and tried something more subtle?
What if you just asked engaging questions?
Yeah,
Left them with something to think about.
that makes them want to learn more.
Exactly. And don't forget about that loving pressure.
Right.
Think about those projects that you've been putting off.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe those relationships that you've been meaning to nurture.
Yeah.
Try that calendar invite strategy.
Yeah.
Not just for sales calls, but maybe for scheduling coffee with a friend.
Right.
Or blocking off time for yourself to actually work on that passion project.
It's like taking charge of your time
Yeah.
in a way that feels good, not overwhelming.
Right? It all starts with recognizing that we all need a little nudge sometimes.
Yeah.
Even if it's just from ourselves.
Okay, so these strategies,
Yeah.
they can be used in so many areas of life.
Oh, absolutely.
And the key is,
Experiment and see what works for you.
don't be afraid to try something new.
Track your results and adjust as you go.
Exactly, because effective follow-up is really all about being authentic, building that trust,
Yeah,
and creating connections that last.
exactly. And who doesn't want more of that?
So it all comes back to, like, cutting through that noise. It's not just enough to have a great product or a cool idea.
Right.
You've got to get people to actually notice you.
You've grabbed their attention.
Right. And that's why those first few interactions are so important.
They really are. It's your chance to make a good first impression.
So how do we make those first few messages count? I'm picturing our listener right now, like writing down notes and thinking, okay, great advice, but what does this actually look like?
Well, let's go back to that Scooby-Doo approach.
Yeah.
How can you create some mystery in that very first message?
Hmm.
Maybe a question that makes them curious or a statement that kind of challenges what they think.
Oh, like an email subject line that just says, are
Yeah.
you making this one common mistake?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's vague, it makes you curious, but it hints that there might be a problem you don't even know about.
Right. You want to find out more?
Totally.
So you create that little gap.
Yeah.
And then in your follow-up messages, you kind of reveal the solution.
Oh, so it's like a breadcrumb trail.
Yeah.
Leading them to the value you can offer.
Yeah.
But we don't want to give them too much too soon.
Right. Remember that 46% drop-off?
Oh, yeah.
We got to be strategic about our timing.
Yeah.
Make sure each message is actually helpful.
Not just adding to the noise.
Exactly.
It's not about memorizing a bunch of tricks. It's about understanding how to actually communicate in this crazy distracted world.
That's it.
That's why things like the subject line or sending that calendar invite can make all the difference.
They really can.
It's about respecting people's time and also finding ways to stand out. This deep dive has been fascinating.
It really has.
Intriguing openers, follow-up frequency, loving pressure, one more contact.
And all from a chiropractor's guide.
Who knew?
Right. It just shows you that these insights can be applied to pretty much any field.
Totally. So as we wrap up,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with a little challenge.
Right.
Pick one of the strategies we talked about today and try it out.
Yeah. Experiment a little.
And maybe it's the Scooby-Doo message, maybe it's the calendar invite.
Or just commit to that one more contact.
See what happens.
You might be surprised.
And remember, the best communication is human communication.
Be yourself. Be persistent.
Be genuinely interested in connecting with others.
You never know what opportunities are waiting.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was fun.
And we'll catch you next time for another exploration.
See you then.